Welcome back to the second hour of World Crisis Radio. And if all goes well, this is a special occasion because we're going to be joined, I believe, I wonder if the control room can confirm, are we, in fact, getting through? Okay, so we're now joined by one of the most distinguished European historians of the current age. It is Annie Lacroix. It's written Lacroix-RIZ. She is Professor Emerita, I believe, at the University of Paris 7.
Yes.
And she is one of the most successful and noted mavericks in the entire world of historical research in Europe, and in particular,
nice of you.
Two books that I would like to point to. Right, one is called "The Choice of Defeat." The thesis here is essentially that the French ruling class, the financiers of the Bank of France and the Banque Worms, W-O-R-M-S, written worms, that group in Paris deliberately wanted Hitler to defeat France in the spring of 1940, and that they used their two organizations, the so-called Synarchists or Synarchy organization, high-level group, and then the operative arm of that known as the Cagoule, the hooded gang, right? And we've talked in the past on this show about how the people who wanted to overthrow Roosevelt in the 1930s were learning lessons from the 1934 attack on the French National Assembly. She's got another book called From Munich to Vichy, which is a story about how the French Republic was destroyed, Hitler from the outside and this French pro-fascist group from the inside. She has also written about the role of the Vatican, Pius XII, and other forces in promoting the rise of fascism in Europe. She's written, I believe, 2 books on the corruption of the historical profession in our time. And the thing that I wanted to start with, I hope we can get to talk about a number of those points, but the first one has to do with Ukraine and the so-called Holodomor, the idea that there was a deliberately created genocidal famine in Ukraine in 1933, 1934, and that this had been politically imposed by Stalin and others. And she finds that, let's get her to tell us. Welcome, Madame Rie.
Hello.
Hello. We're so happy to have you.
I'm happy too.
So please tell us now. Let's start with the Holodomor and your research on that.
It's not specifically my study, but once with my students, I had to publish or to give them original texts about the situation in Russia and, of course, Ukraine in the 30s. And I discovered in diplomatic papers that what was called the Ukrainian famine was appeared very differently in these papers, because so I wrote no book, but I spoke of the problem in my last books. But I made no book about that. It's on my website, a text of 60 pages with the diplomatic papers and my critics about the papers. You know, it's a critical presentation of diplomatic papers. And it may be described as I'm going to try to do. There was in Ukraine, in Soviet Union, and mostly in Ukraine, but not only in Ukraine, there was a very severe drought, a double problem for harvest. A very severe drought in 1932 33, very severe drought, not only in Ukraine, but in the south of Soviet Union. And, of course, the harvest was severely diminished by this drought. And the social and political situation was still how could I say? I've forgotten the exact.
It was very tense. It was conflictual.
It was marked by the consequences of collectivization and anger among rich peasantry, peasants who are called kulaks, and this anger was exploited by Germany and German agents, and this is a specific problem for Ukraine, which we talk about that on the more general question of Ukraine, because Ukraine was a very important target, political and mostly economic target for Germany, and its agents took advantage of the political situation and tried, mostly at the beginning of the 30s and still more when Nazis came to power, to exploit this social problem. And for instance, the attaché in the German embassy in Moscow, Otto Schiller, who was mostly devoted to country problems, harvest problems, and so on, played an important part. And what shows, it was among the texts I discovered, what showed there was still no famine in 93. In the beginning of 93, in February 93, he published a report, a very long report, which has been translated in French. It's in the Quai d'Orsay archives, in the archives of French Foreign Office, and this report speaks about the awful Soviet organization, but there is no word about famine. And the situation was very difficult. At the end of 33, at the beginning of at the end of 32, at the beginning of 33, because in the period between the exhaustion of the old harvest and the new harvest, but not only in Ukraine, because the diplomatic papers showed that the food rationing was more severe in the north of Russia, for instance in Leningrad and Moscow, than in the southern country. And
hang on 1 second. The music tells us that we've just got one of our inevitable station breaks for some advertising, and we'll be right back with Annie Lacroix, distinguished French historian, on the question of the Holodomor in Ukraine and other topics. Back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington. Very happy to be joined by Annie Lacroix, French historian who has written on any number of topics, 20th century history in particular, and she's in the course of telling us that the so-called deliberately provoked famine in Ukraine in the early 1930s was not Ukrainian and was a result more of natural causes, lack of water, a drought, and not so much the result of any political decision. Is that about right?
Yes, but I think that the political situation in Ukraine was important too, because Germans asked, it was not difficult to ask them, asked rich peasants to keep the harvest, to keep the grains during the difficult period between the old harvest and the new harvest. But what is important too is that the food shortage didn't strike only Ukraine, but all the south of Russia, Caucasus, Kazakhstan, and so on. And that's the first problem. The second problem is that we are sure, absolutely sure, that the difficult food situation really stopped in the summer of 1933 with a very good harvest in July 33. And what's remarkable is that the campaign, the political campaign, just began in the summer of 1933. And I think we might speak of the campaign, speaking generally of the Ukrainian question. And there's something very important which makes very nervous the historians who talk in France. I think of Nicolas Vert, who talk of genocide or a genocide famine in Ukraine. There is no photographs. There is no one photograph of the Ukrainian famine in 1933. I'm absolutely categoric on this point. And these last days, I was interviewed by a French journalist with Nicolas Vert, and Nicolas Vert got very nervous because he had to acknowledge that all the photos published since the 30s, because as I said, the campaign began in 1933. Organized by Germany, Poland, Vatican, I might say all the German allies. All the photos published since 1933, as far as the present times, are all photos of the frightful famine of 1921, which is, as you know, the consequence of the foreign war imposed upon the Russian people because of this revolution. It was not, as it's so often said, only a civil war. It was, as a French leader said in 1937, French Prime Minister Sautin said, speaking of the war in Spain, it was a civil foreign war.